Hello, hello, hello. How's everybody doing? How's everybody doing? Yeah. Surprised to see me earlier? I know the times got moved around a little bit, but at the end of the day, it turned out to be earlier, right? Here's the situation. Here's the situation. Um, Here's the situation. Okay. One, there's a lot of things happening life-wise for me today. Just signed a new lease for another place, so my girlfriend and I are moving in there. So that took up a shit ton of time today. And then the other part is I am experiencing some neck pain at the moment, which means that I was trying to do a little bit. I don't need to go into everything. It should be okay. I just kind of have to rest, I think, a little bit. But today's stream will likely be a little bit shorter. So I scheduled it for 7:30 EST. But I was feeling better, so I was like, okay, let me just start it now. So we'll get a longer stream than planned, but it's not going to be as long as usual, unfortunately, just because, yeah, experiencing a little bit of discomfort right now. But I've got, Tylenol, not technically Tylenol, but like a Tylenol equivalent. I should be good. Yeah, so I'll be moving again, and so we're really excited about this next place. We're shifting from apartment to house, and I've been an apartment person since I moved out from from my family's house or whatever. I've been an apartment person. Yeah, this will be fun switching to house because I had my qualms earlier, but then once I walked into the space, it's just so nice. There's so much more space, and then there's a yard for the dogs, and there's just going to be, it's going to be a big upgrade. But anyway, enough about that. Let's talk about the chapter. Tio Treviso, thanks for 5. Now that the contracts and Dami Reversi are proving they're not as broken as we first thought, I hope that means that Imu's own strength is still being saved. I mean, yeah, Imu's own strength in the grand scheme of things, but I'm leaning towards... You'll see in the video that comes out tomorrow, but I'm leaning towards I don't think that Imu is going to be the big bad boss of this. Or I mean, Imu is the big bad boss, but I'm leaning towards we're going to get a team fight against a certain situation that will play out. It's a situation that people are really talking about, obviously. So, if it comes up in stream, I'll touch on it a little bit, but... Here's the big thing. So the big thing with Imu, so there's a few observations right here. Few observations. It looks like, first let's get stream likes up to 50. It looks like, number one, I believe, so Dami Reversi obviously gives you the power boost, and it gives you regeneration. It does not seem to give you regeneration on the same level as the Gods Knights and the Gorosei get. Because with the Gods Knights and the Gorosei, it's made fairly clear that the only way to really deal damage to them is Conqueror's Haki, right? You can't just kill them. The whole idea is that like anything that would have killed them, they just regenerate from, right? So that makes sense because those contracts, Imu, like it's implied that the contracts take a toll on Imu. It's implied that the contracts are, a big deal. Like Imu only gives it out to 13 chosen. Whereas Dami Reversi, that's more like confetti, It's just like... Here, you get Dami Reversi'd, you get Dami Reversi'd, all the Giants of Elbaf get Dami Reversi'd. So it would obviously be a little bit broken if Imu's regenerative gifts work the same way for all the Dami Reversi'd Giants as they do for the Gods Knights and the Gorosei. That's at least how I am currently rationalizing it, right? So, my assumption is basically... Gods Knights Gorosei, you do need the Conqueror's Haki. It is legitimately really hard to kill one of those immortal soldiers. The Dami Reversi beings, they get that crazy power buff, but the regeneration is not as big of a deal with them. You just have to go for the kill. That also would explain why during the fight against Rocks, in the fight against Dami Reversi'd Rocks, Oda didn't really make a big deal out of the regeneration part. It was more so like Rocks' own Conqueror's Haki is so strong now, how do we overcome that? Roger and Garp never even really ran into the regeneration issue. So I think that makes sense from what we've seen. The other thing with Dami Reversi is just that No, I guess that's the main assumption I'm making with Dami Reversi here. That's the main assumption I'm making with Dami Reversi. That's the only way to square away everything that Oda's told us so far, right? Dami Loki, yeah, Dami Loki, I think we're heading there. I think actually a lot of things in the story. I'm very excited for tomorrow's video. Because a lot of people have talked about the possibility of Dami Loki. We've been circling around that. But now that it's looking more and more prominent, more and more imminent, right? I really started digging into it. The narrative setup is there. It will actually lead to a really narratively strong and thematically strong endgame for both the Straw Hats and Loki for everything this arc is heading towards, okay? It'll be good for Loki's character, actually, when it's all said and done. You guys will see what I'm talking about in this video. And 3, the fight is actually going to be a lot more fair than people realize. Because I really sat down and started breaking it down. If you just look at it like, well, it's just like Gear 5 Luffy, who's only you can use Gear 5 for like 5 minutes or whatever, and then all the Straw Hats against not just like island nuking Loki, but an amped version of island nuking Loki, right? Like even stronger. Basically, this would be even stronger than Dami Reversied Rocks or Holy Knight Herald, right? It's not that simple. There's a lot more to it that I think there's more swing factors that people aren't considering that Oda's been setting up throughout the arc. So, yeah, I'm actually very excited for tomorrow's video. I forgot the other reason that it's unlikely, in my opinion, that Imu is going to be the main big bad of the arc that everyone has to team up against. One is just that that's probably going to happen in the final war, right? I don't think Oda's going to recycle that same plot line. And 2, this is becoming a bit more apparent now. So I went back and read God Valley, right? Or was looking through the chapters of God Valley at the very least. Imu right now is not on the island in the same way that he was at God Valley. This is a different type of possession. With God Valley, Imu literally transported himself to God Valley. Like at God Valley, they had to actually fight Imu, like his true body. Like Imu himself was there. They were fighting the real Imu. That's why Imu literally had to get on a boat to sail back to Morge. At Elbaf, Imu's not actually there. They're like Gunko is a meat puppet. Imu himself is sitting back at Morge right now. No matter what, it's not going to be the same degree of challenge because my guess would be that Gunko, the Gorosei have like the top tier level contract and Gunko has 1 tier down. That's my guess. So my guess would basically be that with the Gorosei, Imu can actually use their bodies as a portal to transport himself to wherever he wants to be, right? With Gunko and God's Knights in general, my belief is that Imu can only use them from afar. Like, it's remote control like a meat puppet, right? So it's just not going to be the same thing. Like, that invincible god that, like, all the old gen at God Valley couldn't damage, they're not fighting that at Elbaf. They're just fighting a Gunko puppet, you know? So I think that Imu's going to need to bust out something stronger. Yeah, probably only the Gorosei can be the real vessels to summon the real Imu. Yeah, so, I mean, there's also the possibility that Imu can fully manifest through Gunko, but just hasn't chosen to do so yet. But I'm simply pointing out the reality that we have right now is that whatever we're faced with right now in terms of Imu is just not going to be the God Valley version of Imu. It's not the real Imu. So I don't think, if they jumped this Gunko avatar, I think they're fucking up the Gunko avatar. Because I went back and looked, Rox had no problem fucking up the Saturn avatar. Like, he was chopping up Saturn's tentacles and all that stuff. Like, that was easy work. But then once Imu's full body manifested, that's when it became really a challenge. So, like, I feel like it's possible Luffy and Loki could just fuck up the Gunko avatar without too much difficulty. I might be underestimating, I don't know. But let's wait and see. Retro Records 28, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 41 months. Hey Morge, I have a bet going that Usopp will only get his development after we leave Elbaf because I think his arc won't begin until he sees Yasopp. I think we need something for Usopp in Elbaf. It would just be genuinely... I mean, 1, Yasopp could still show up here. That's still possible. That's still in the realm of possibility. 2, I think that with the amount of setup for Usopp and Elbaf, like, people have talked about Zoro and Wano, Frankie and Egghead. Those are not the same. This is very, very different. Usopp himself has made it important that this island is important for his character, for his dream, yada yada, and Usopp has reiterated that God knows how many times over the course of like the 1100 chapters leading to Elbaf. He fucking said it in the chapter that we were fucking sailing to Elbaf, right? Like, this is very different. This is one of those that if Oda doesn't deliver, then it's kind of like every single Straw Hat's. Now it's just like we're on a very slippery slope where every single Straw Hat's dream, ambition, etc., how important it is now thrown into question. Like, this is no exaggeration. If Usopp does not get something in Elbaf, right, that is remarkably similar to, like, we're only one step away from talking about things like Zoro's not going to become the world's strongest swordsman, right? I'm not saying it's the same thing, but I'm saying the slippery slope really starts, where it's now like Elbaf was kind of marked out for, like, because Usopp's dream was always very vague. It was just become a brave warrior. You could argue that he'd achieved that dream in East Blue. I would argue he achieved that dream in East Blue. I think if you ask most fucking random One Piece citizens, they're like, hey, if somebody fought a fisherman, would you call them a brave warrior of the sea? They'd be like, fuck yeah, you know? So Usopp already achieved his dream way back when. That's why Elbaf was so important for Usopp's dream, because that finally gave us something tangible in terms of like, I want to go to the island of the giants, and that's really where I'm going to come into my own as a brave warrior. Those weren't the exact stipulations, but that's what's been strongly implied over and over, right? That's the tangible version of his dream. Elbaf is the tangible endpoint for his dream, right? So if Elbaf is just another random arc where nothing happens for Usopp, now everything is officially fair to question. Like, legitimately, there's that's not, I don't think it's an exaggeration to say. Now everything is officially up in the air to question. Why should I believe that Sanji's going to find the all blue if Usopp talked about Elbaf 50 million times more frequently than Sanji's talked about the all blue, and nothing happens for Usopp and Elbaf, you know? So that's important. Talha, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 22 months. Also, let me shout out, Pirate King Podcast submissions are now open. So for those of you who don't know what that is, Pirate King Podcast is the monthly podcast that I do for all Pirate King tier members. So that is the top tier of YouTube members and patrons. It is a once a month podcast where if you're a Pirate King member, you can submit any question that you want about One Piece, other anime, manga, TV, movies, real life, NBA, yada yada, whatever you think, video games, whatever. You can submit the questions there, and then I go through and answer them all in great detail and depth in the monthly podcast. The podcasts are now coming out to be like an hour and a half long because I just have so much more time to talk there and elaborate and get into nitty-gritty than I do on streams. So yeah, definitely every single person's question is answered, and you get access to all previous Pirate King podcasts. We've got like over 30 of them now. So definitely, yeah, if you want to get in on that, Pirate King podcast submissions are now open. Tala is saying, I don't care if he one-shots Emu. No one big moment is worth this humiliation ritual he's been put through. Oda's artificially making him extra ass. Hack writing, I can't lie. Are we talking about Usopp? Look, I mean, I still think that I'm still of the opinion that it generally doesn't matter how cowardly or lame Usopp is for extended periods of time. People generally don't remember that. Like, that generally just fades into the background once Usopp gets his good character writing. I've seen that before in, Alabasta, obviously Water 7, Enies Lobby, Dressrosa. It's pretty frequent. Thriller Bark, Usopp was a huge coward throughout Thriller Bark, but then nobody remembers that because they just remember the Perona fight as Usopp's best fight, So as long as Oda's got something planned here that's like at least as big as what he did for Usopp in Dressrosa, we're good. Because I'd say Usopp's lowest period of time was genuinely the first half of Dressrosa. First half of Dressrosa, Usopp straight up lied to all the Tentatas and manipulated them and was planning an escape and basically sent them all off to their deaths, yada yada. He was next level lying, next level pathetic that whole time. People don't really talk about that or remember that because all people remember is that, oh, God Usopp, knocking out Sugar, the sniping from long distance and stuff like that. That's what everybody remembers. So, you can say that now, but I think I don't think Usopp's been that bad this arc. He just hasn't really, he really hasn't been that bad this arc. He just hasn't done anything. He's been whining, but Usopp always whines, you know? You could say he's maybe been a bit more. Wano Usopp was the worst. Wano Usopp, I was hoping for something really big, because Wano Usopp was a next level situation, and that really bothered me about the Wano arc, because in that arc, Usopp was straight up like a bad person to his friends, almost. I mean, he didn't actually do anything, but his negative talk reached a different level where he was starting to say stuff like, if I get captured, I'm just going to betray everybody. I'm going to, like, fucking spill my secrets. If I get captured, I'll talk. Like, I'll fucking do whatever. I was like, what the fuck? That's not, like, that's very different than just saying, like, I'm scared, or I'm going to, I'll run away or something. That was weird. And I was like, okay, well, I'm sure Oda will redeem Usopp in some way this arc. That's not the real Usopp. But no, Usopp actually ends the arc giving a big speech about how it's good to be a coward sometimes to the samurai, you know? It was weird. Sean Easton, thanks for the 5, man. The streets are saying Loki will get Dami reversied. You can call me the streets, because watch tomorrow's video. Also, do you think people can be Dami reversied multiple times? Could be an endurance fight. No, I think that it's more dramatic. I'm sure people can be Dami reversied multiple times, but I feel like it's a lot more dramatic if, like, it seems like you need to kill the character, basically, to undo the Dami reversing, right? So the most dramatic scenario is a big, long, extended battle with Loki, with finally him being killed, right? A la what Roger and Garp did to Rocks or something like that. Probably through some team attack, I imagine. Or maybe Oda just really wants to jerk off Luffy and Luffy does it or something. But that's what we would be looking for here. That's what would be needed, right? To kill Loki. So I imagine it would be less dramatic if you get like a big moment where Loki is killed, and then it's like, yeah, we did it, and then Imu does it again, and it's like, okay, so now we're doing it again. You can't really hit a very climactic finish if you're just recycling the same win condition over and over. At least that's how I feel, but I mean, Oda could write it totally differently, you know? Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Tia Treviso, thanks to 2. I hope Imu's actual body feels comparable to Joy Boy. This is a weird sounding sentence, but we don't know what Joy Boy's level was like, you know, so, but I'm sure it'll probably be something comparable in strength. Yeah, I feel like it'll likely be something comparable in strength. I'm sure that Oda will give us that. We've already seen that Imu's true body is so strong that you can line up all the Yonko and Pirate King characters and it didn't do anything to him. You know, like he was invincible even against them. So I think it'll be a sufficient challenge. Tom9739, thanks for the 2. Shouldn't she be equal to Gorosei because of unaging? Oh, that's a good point. That's a very good point. So maybe she has the same level of contract. That's a very good point. Maybe Gunko has the same level of contract. Then maybe Imu simply hasn't chosen to use her vessel to transport himself. That's the other thing I can think of. All I can say is that right now, at this moment, they're not facing the version of Imu that was fought at Elbaf. They're facing a, you know, just a meat puppet, you know? But that's a very good point. Very good point. Unless the lack of aging is due to some other thing that Imu did, that's a really good point. So I'm wrong on that, Tom9739, probably. So it's, assuming she has the same level of contract, it's likely that Imu can do a full manifestation through Gunko, but he's currently choosing not to. He's currently choosing to do long-distance remote control. Zolden, thanks for the 5. I thought the Sanji moment was really cool, but I was looking forward to Usopp killing him. Now beating a God's Knight feels that useful. Feels that useful? Doesn't feel that useful? Now beating a God's Knight feels that useful. So I don't fully understand what you're saying there, but I think the rep of the God's Knights has really tanked. I think we will see next chapter, you know, killing him, presumably recovering, right? Presumably recovering, and then now Sanji will be faced with the challenge of having to unlock Conqueror's Haki or whatever. It'd be very interesting if Because if Sanji gets killing him, Zoro's not getting Dory and Brogy. Zoro versus Somers would be such a joke matchup. I mean, I think that when I say a joke matchup, I don't mean, oh, I'm confident Zoro would just walk through Somers. I mean, it's similar to the Lucci situation where it's like, we don't respect this opponent anymore. Like, we as a reader base don't really respect this opponent anymore. So seeing Zoro fight this opponent is not going to be exciting for us, even if this opponent turns out to be an actual challenge for Zoro, right? Like, unless Zoro does Somers like Gaban did Somers, people are going to be, at minimum, people are going to be very upset. And I have a feeling that it won't be that easy, because I feel like Somers is probably stronger than Lucci. I don't know. We'll see. Zoro does need to get his Conqueror Haki down, so we'll see about that. Sanji versus killing him, that's really cool. That's a really cool, because I was beginning to think more and more that Sanji would fight Somers. I'd been thinking that for a while. A lot of people had been thinking that for a while. So many similarities with the idea of, Somers with all these claims about love, yada yada. Sanji's the warrior of love. It just seemed thematically fitting. Gaban fought Somers, so you might think Sanji would fight Somers. The fire versus thorns, yada yada. It just seemed like that would be the natural setup, but Somers was humiliated so much that it's a very pleasant surprise to see that Sanji's going to be fighting the cooler God's Knight at this point in time, at least in terms of our perception, which would be killing him. Hoops and Hoops, thanks to the 5. What do you think about Emu being a Clubutterman? I saw a theory on Reddit a while ago, and I can't stop thinking about it. I didn't know Clubuttermans could be that evil. I feel like Emu's not a Clubutterman. I feel like we were told that he's, Saint Emu Narona, a king from the Void Century, or from the, Second World. So I'm rolling with that. To me, the way that I see One Piece thematically, it makes more sense that, in One Piece you just see this idea over and over again, which is just that these god figures, they're not really, there's nothing actually special about them. They're just people, right? Evil, greedy people, sometimes criminals or rebels themselves initially, who gain enough power that they overthrow whoever else is in charge, they take over, and then anoint themselves gods, yada yada, right? That is the idea that's pushed throughout the story, right? To me, stuff like Emu actually being a supernatural being like a Klabutterman, that just has nothing to do with anything. Maybe there's a reason that thematically it could fit, but it just doesn't seem to fit with what Oda has done consistently throughout the story in terms of writing this consistent indictment of the idea of greed, thirst for power, yada yada, right? Same with the idea of Emu being actually a devil. Some people believe that Emu literally is a devil from the first world or something like that. He's literally some supernatural primordial being. I'm like, so then what's the point, if any, of One Piece's messaging? Is One Piece's story actually about just defeating the concept of evil? What is it? How do I go back and apply the stories of defeating Wapol, defeating Enel, defeating Doflamingo to the idea of just what if Satan was real? It's okay, well, if Satan was real, then maybe the story should have been about that from the beginning, Tom9739, thanks for the 2. In terms of her contract, I mean 50 years the same. Yeah. I see what you're saying. Henchme987, thanks for the 5. Forget the top tier debates. Who wins? Leo with the Nidhogg fruit, or Lajruden, the inferior sperm, Haraldson with the Nika fruit, unawakened? Unawakened, so just the Goma Goma no Mi version. I'd say Leo with the Nidhogg fruit, because I think maybe size-wise it would even out, and Leo's freakishly strong for his size. So, but lightning wouldn't work against Hajruden. I'd give it to Leo still. I think Leo is freakishly strong for his size. So then if you give him the Nidhogg fruit too, he would probably reach Harold's size, maybe? Not Harold, Hajruden's size. So I think that I'd give it to Leo. Put it this way. Leo right now is, I think he might be... If I were to rank the Grand Fleet in my head, it's at the top, it's some combination of, I think, Cavendish, Bartolomeo, Sai, or whatever, right? Then I think I got Hajruden a step down. Then I got Ideo, with Leo being like a dark horse. Maybe, I don't know how you compare Leo to Ideo. There's not that much to compare there, but I think Leo is pretty strong. It's pretty strong. Also, yeah, I guess Bellamy, if you want to count Bellamy, then maybe Bellamy is implied to not actually... I think a lot of readers overrate how strong they think Bellamy is. I think it's been made pretty clear that Bellamy is... he's not as strong as the likes of Cavendish, Bartholomew, etc. In fact, Doflamingo didn't quite seem to think he was strong enough to join his crew. Dellinger fucked up Bellamy, so I don't really know how strong Bellamy actually is. If Bellamy was part of the Don Quixote Pirates, he would be like one of the weaker members, basically, is what's implied. Tiptio Treviso, thanks for the 5. Is there a chance that Brooke's mentor was the previous Ope Ope fruit user and gave that operation to Gunko, and that's why she's ageless and how she, quote-unquote, killed him? That would be really interesting. That'd be really interesting. Ooh, that'd be really interesting. That'd be crazy. There is a chance that's possible. Because it's like... It's practically confirmed for us. The revolutionaries basically spell it out for us that Imu probably has the immortality surgery been done. Imu has probably had the immortality surgery done to him, right? They straight up say that in chapter 1085 or 86 or something. So that's kind of at least what Oda wants us to understand, that Imu probably has had the immortality surgery done to him. But does that mean that over the last 1,000 years, nobody else has had the immortality surgery done? So that's a very interesting possibility. That's a cool idea. I like that. Let's get stream likes up to 50 real quick. Sakul1161, thanks for the 2. Zoro slices Loki's Dami Reversi dragon head. So, right here, we could acknowledge that that is now legitimately a real possibility. I think that Zoro killing Loki is actually in the realm of possibility. I don't think there's any world where Zoro does this alone, but if everybody opens it, so the only thing that the reasons that it's possible is because Oda's just got a thing for Zoro killing dragons for like some time now. It's just been a thing, right? You go back to the first fucking arc in the New World. The first fight in the New World is Zoro killing a dragon. Right? Like, that's the first thing that happened. We know that Zoro's largely based off the character Ryuma, also the descendant of Ryuma, whose most infamous moment was slaying a dragon. We go through the story. Zoro, obviously, he doesn't kill Kaido, like people think. He does not kill Kaido. He gets some moments against Kaido, but he doesn't kill Kaido. But then Oda kind of gives him, like, you know, like a little consolation, sort of like, here, you killed a dragon thing, in that King's final move, for, you know, whatever symbolic reason, is a dragon attack, and Zoro kills that cuts that dragon, right? So you got the imagery pretty frequently throughout the story of the idea of Zoro killing a dragon, right? So that's been there for some time. Now you add in the fact that, and I know Oda really likes the roots of, like, past ideas. He likes the roots, right? So, you know, again, Zoro's inspiration, Ryuma, the whole thing, Oda wrote an original one-shot way before One Piece of this character slaying a dragon, right? Now you add in the fact that with a Dami Reversied being, the only way to flip them back is to kill them. And the one depiction we had of this was straight up Dorian Brogy being decapitated, and that turned them back, right? So now it does open up the interesting territory of, like, look, Zoro killing Loki to help free him is actually in the realm of possibility. The things that hold that back are, you don't actually need to decapitate to undo Dami Reversi. We saw that Roger and Garp, essentially, it seems like, killed Rocks. They must have, in order to turn him back. And they didn't have to decapitate him. They just did an attack that was strong enough that it essentially kills Rocks, right? So it doesn't have to be Zoro. Loki doesn't have to be decapitated. There's other methods, right? So that's one. And then two, in Wano, there was almost more momentum behind this being a special storyline for Zoro. Whereas in Elbaf, I think it'd be like a lot more random if it was just like, okay, Zoro's going to be the one to kill Loki and get the finishing blow on him, because this doesn't feel like it's an arc that's supposed to be particularly important for Zoro in a special way. Like, I think Zoro will get upgrades, he'll get big moments, but he kind of does that in most arcs anyway, you know? He get, like, Oda likes to give Zoro shine in most arcs regardless, so, I mean, look, if we think back, if we want to play with the idea that Zoro gets the finishing blow, in Thriller Bark, Zoro did get to lead most of the fight against Oars, but that was when Luffy was out of the picture. Once Luffy was back in the picture, Oda obviously gave the finishing blow to Luffy. Now, flip side, Thriller Bark turned out to be, if you were to say, like, which character shined the most in Thriller Bark overall, you would say Zoro, because the most iconic part of Thriller Bark is actually not really Thriller Bark itself. It's like the post-climax, which is nothing happened. The whole Kuma showdown, right? That's kind of like the golden part of Thriller Bark that everybody really, really remembers. The Kuma situation, right? And that was a huge Zoro scene, right? So you could argue that between leading the charge against Oars and then nothing happened being the big central character moment that defined Thriller Bark, you could argue that in a sense Thriller Bark was a Zoro arc, and then Elbaf is paralleling that arc in many ways. So if you want to stretch some ways, you could imagine a scenario. I would say Zoro killing Loki is more realistic than Zoro killing Kaido, just because Kaido was a true evil bad guy that was a Luffy specific opponent, and it would be really random if that fight was taken from Luffy out of his hands and Zoro got to kill him, right? That doesn't really happen. Loki is not truly the villain of Elbaf. He is just set to be like a really big obstacle, most likely, that needs to be fought. I still imagine Oda would always give the finishing blow to Luffy, but I could imagine a world where the finishing blow goes to Zoro. You know? I could imagine a world. It's not as important to Luffy's story. Like, Damir versus Loki is not even like, it's not, I don't know. Look, this is all even assuming Loki gets Damir versus in the first place. We don't know. Lil Emu, thanks for the 2. I think Emu's possessed by the will of an awakened MZ. Do you mean to say Zoan? By the will of an awakened... Yeah, maybe. That'd be kind of cool, but... like, those ideas are cool, but then they don't have any thematic meaning, you know? It's just like, there's like just an evil devil fruit that's just evil. And, you know, that's why Emu's so bad. I think the story is just much more interesting if, like, the Celestial Dragons actually represent the themes of One Piece, which is just men coveting power, taking over, seizing power, declaring themselves God, and then seeking to rule, control, and oppress other humans because you've gained enough power that you feel like it's your divine right to do so, right? The whole concept of the Celestial Dragons kind of falls apart, in my opinion, if it's just like, there's just supernatural devil involved. Danion, thanks for the 5. I think Nidhogg equals Uranus. Punk Hazard research was to create a replica Nidhogg fruit to power the Lucia weapon. Also, Zoro finishes Loki, end of arc, Ryuma feat. I mean, people are on that. You know what? Let me throw it with the people. What do people think right now? Let's do a little poll. If Loki is Dami reverse seed, then ZKL. It's finishing blow. Zoro doesn't. I think I would still give credit if, like somebody mentioned earlier, what if Loki gets Dami reverse seed multiple times? I think I'd still give credit if Loki's head does get cut off by Zoro, but then Emu reverses Loki again, so there's like, it doesn't end right there. Nidhogg being Uranus, I think that is a solid possibility, because Nidhogg is just... I mean, it's great, because, like, one, It's the fruit, like, Uranus we know is supposed to be the sky god's power, right? So that fits. Flying, lightning, dragon. But then 2, on top of that, Nidhogg, the fruit just seems better, strictly better, than other actual ancient weapons. Now, because, like, we're told that Pluton is a ship that can destroy islands, and that's why it's so powerful. Nidhogg can clearly destroy islands, right? Like, the attack that it does is on the same scale of the Rygo. It's on the same scale as the Lulusia Kingdom explosion, right? It can destroy islands. There's no question. So it's like, if I'm comparing the Nidhogg to the Pluton, to be fair, we haven't seen Pluton yet. It's like, if I need to destroy an island, isn't this Devil Fruit just more effective than the ship? If we're even comparing to whatever destroyed the Lulusia Kingdom, again, that shit requires Mother Flames. The Nidhogg, you can just fucking fly around and do that. The catch, of course, is that the Nidhogg fruit is only this effective because it's been eaten by Loki. If a normal dude ate it, then the dragon would be much smaller, and the attacks would likely be... We're told that no matter what, you become the biggest dragon, right? So it would be presumably still bigger than Kaido's dragon. So, but the attacks then would be more like Borobreath type attacks, right? So maybe that's the catch. Maybe that's why this Devil Fruit is not known as an ancient weapon. But it clearly, in the hands of the right person, is easily better than the ancient weapon. I don't know. I think it's better than Poseidon. Like, I think Loki would fucking cook the Sea Kings. Like, you could gather... I don't care how many Sea Kings you gather up. Loki would... I think Loki's fucking cooking them, you know? Why would I want a ship like Pluton to slowly sail from island to island, taking days to destroy them, when you can just swoop in with Nidhogg and just blow it up, you know? Even the Lulusia Kingdom destroying thing, I mean, it just seems like you need fuel, you need Mother Flames and stuff like that. So, I don't know. It's strongly implied to us in the story that whatever destroys Lulusia Kingdom is the ancient weapon Uranus. The revolutionaries speculate that that's what it was. So Oda's at least very much trying to make us believe that that's the ancient weapon. Also, if you go back to the hieroglyphics on the moon, a lot of little things seem to suggest that the moon hieroglyphics actually showed us all 3 of the ancient weapons, and there was no dragon there. But with the power level of Nidhogg and everything like that, I just think that it could be... it. I also think it just fits what Oda might be trying to do with the ancient weapons, where, like, the 3 ancient weapons, 1 is a ship, 1 is an individual, 1 is a fruit. I think that sort of trifecta is pretty interesting. I think there's a good shot. If I had to put my money right now, I'd still bet that whatever Imu used to destroy Lulusia Kingdom is the true ancient weapon, but I think there's a solid shot that Nidhogg might be revealed. You know how in, like, Fishman Island, Oda told us that Shirahoshi has this crazy seeking power or whatever, and then at the end of the arc it was revealed that she's the ancient weapon Poseidon? Maybe Oda does something similar here. I don't know. Dre5714, thanks to the 5. Since Oda wants a party at the end of there might not be many deaths in the final war. I've been slowly accepting that as time has gone on. I remember young, optimistic Morge believed that Oda might pull the trigger on killing Usopp at some point in the final war. My logic was that if the final war is very long, like 200 chapters or something like that, or 150 like Wano or something, then if Usopp's death is a tragedy at the beginning, then that could be, like, and the Strats have to work through that and everything, then maybe there could be enough time for whatever grieving process, etc., such that by the time of the finale, the Strats are still able to celebrate. You know, like, when Luffy lost Ace, you know, it was obviously really, really bad, but that didn't mean that now Luffy's just sad forever, you know? Obviously, we got 2 years of the time skip and everything, but I'm just saying, like, I'm trying to think in terms of reading, like, narrative flow. With the death of a Straw Hat, how much time could Oda allot for that process to everything to emotionally play out, and then for a rise back up, and then still getting a satisfying conclusion? I used to believe that there was a way that maybe Oda could do that. I even thought at some point that what if Oda does it like before the final war or something, like they have a really bad run-in with the Blackbeard Pirates or something, and Usopp goes out swinging, saving everybody or something like that. That was young optimistic Morge, when I thought that Oda might take like really bold steps with characters. Now, new, grounded, realistic Morge has come to realize that, like, forget killing Usopp, forget killing a Straw Hat. Oda is at his point where he doesn't even want to keep characters that he previously killed off dead, right? If Oda can't keep Saul dead, I'm never going to sit down and believe that he could kill Usopp, okay? I don't think Usopp dying is necessary. I don't think a Straw Hat dying is necessary, so I'm not even trying to say anything like that. But I now understand that there's only going to be so many characters that Oda be willing to actually pull the trigger on. I think some that are potentially still on the chopping block are Shanks, Trafalgar Law. I think Oda will want to involve some death, because we've already seen between Whole Cake Island and Wano that Oda seems to respect the idea of stakes enough that he's willing to kill off characters. Just not characters that are really going to make us emotionally feel something very deep. I thought it was sad when Pedro died, even though most of us were like unsure if Pedro had actually died or not. And Oda did call that into question with the Pound situation right afterwards, where he also made us believe Pound died, but then Pound didn't actually die. So, but the reality is Oda killed someone in Whole Cake Island. And then in Wano, he killed some characters that were very disposable. Yasue, Ashura Doji, Izzo. Characters where it's like, okay, they died, but they didn't die. They were not characters we cared enough about that it's going to affect our mood, right? To me, that makes the point of their death pointless, right? There is no point, right? Because then you're just killing characters to say you killed characters rather than to actually have dramatic weight attached to it. I respected the Pedro death more than any of the deaths in Wano, personally. I think the Pedro death got counteracted a bit with the Pound death, because then it's just like, why do this but then do this? But anyway, I don't think Oda sees it like that, obviously. Anyway, I'm rambling now. I'd say in the final war, I think it's possible Oda kills off some random-ass characters people don't care about. In Egghead, Oda killed some of the Vegapunks, but then implied that the Vegapunks are still alive. So he's willing to do that. Just in the final war, I do believe Oda's going to kill characters, because he's shown that over the last 3 arcs. He's willing to kill characters. But I expect, just like in the last 3 arcs, we will get more fake-out deaths than we get actual deaths. And I think that's ultimately the big thing. That's the issue, which is, just don't do the pretend deaths. Just, you don't have to do the pretend deaths. Just do the actual deaths, if you just do that, then we're not going to be as conflicted about either. We're not going to care as much. If Oda were to kill major characters, I think Shanks and Law are the only two I feel have a solid 50% chance or higher of going. Shanks, I think, has had death flags for a very long time. It's kind of tradition for, those mentor, father figure type characters in these stories to die. Not to say Oda's going to follow that, but, Oda was willing to kill off Luffy's brother. I don't see why he wouldn't be willing to kill off Shanks, so long as Shanks gets a fitting finale to his own story. And then Law, I think Law would be the closest character Oda could do to killing off a Straw Hat that's not actually a Straw Hat, because Law has reached that level of significance in the story. I've said this many times before, but Law is the only other character in One Piece that is basically, you would say, main character level. There's other characters, Oda can show us that big spread of all the characters in Vegapunk's speech, and it's like, look, Kobe's here, and Sabo's here, and Shanks is here, and stuff, and it's like, we know those characters are important, but ultimately they're side characters in terms of their actual level of focus in the story. We've seen Kobe in, 10 chapters in the narrative total, maybe 10, 15. Sabo, probably something similar. They're not actually a big part of One Piece. They're just have a stronghold in people's emotions and memories because we think those are cool characters. But Shanks has, a dozen chapters of relevance in the story, right? Law is the one character who's got Straw Hat level narrative focus, screen time. It's just, Law's the Straw Hat that is not actually on the crew. Like, even Vivi, people are like, Vivi's the one Straw Hat who's not actually with the crew. That's technically true, but in terms of actual narrative story focus, Law is the only other character who's not actually in the crew who has their level of focus, right? So he's off the crew. Law fulfilled his dreams, yada yada, for the most part. He has implied that he's willing to sacrifice his life before for Luffy. He has a Chekhov's gun type fruit. I think Law could be a character that they go for, you know? I'm not saying that because I dislike Law. I'm saying that Law is like, yeah, Law is more important than half the Straw Hats, Law. Yeah, like, if you were to ask, like, hey, who's gotten more actual narrative focused, Law or Brook? The answer is a no-brainer, it's fucking Law, right? If you were to say who's gotten more narrative focused, Law or Frankie, it's fucking Law. Especially if you're looking at post-time skip. Post-time skip, Law wipes the floor with almost everybody that's not the Monster Trio in terms of narrative focus. Mad God 420, thanks for the 20. Doesn't killing someone undoing Dami Reversi cause a plot hole? Wouldn't Roger and Garp killing Rocks just bring him to normal? Wouldn't Loki killing his father just bring him back to normal? Why didn't it work in those instances? But Roger and Garp killing Rocks did bring him back to normal. So that is actually what happened, right? Roger and Garp killed Rocks, and then the problem is that they were all knocked out after that. So you had Rocks. That's why Garling actually was the one that came back in and killed Rocks. I would argue that this actually resolves an existing like question mark that readers had, what some readers were calling a plot hole, which is readers were like, wait, so Roger and Garp were able to, like, how did they undo the Dami Reversi? I remember that was a question back when chapter 1166 came out, because Roger and Garp were knocked out, and then it was shown that Rocks has been cured, basically. So people were like, wait, what does this mean? Is this like a Haki thing? Like, what happened exactly? Like, did they just pour in enough Haki and undo Imu's magic? Turned out that killing Rocks did it, right? As for Loki killing his father, so to me, my interpretation so far is that there's just a difference between Holy Knights and Gorosei, like the characters who have been given contracts by Imu, versus Dami Reversied characters. I think there's just a fundamental difference. With Holy Knight type characters, it seems like it's two things, right? With the Dami Reversied characters, they have regeneration, it looks like, but anything fatal actually undoes a sufficient level of damage undoes the Dami Reversi. It takes away Imu's control. With the characters of contracts, so Holy Knights and Gorosei, it appears to me to be that it appears to me that no amount of damage can actually resolve their immortality or can stop their regeneration unless you've used enough Conqueror's Haki. So a simple example is Jupiter. If you look at Jupiter, Dorian Brogy beheaded Jupiter. They did that right away when they showed up. They beheaded Jupiter, so he should be dead. But the regeneration worked, and he came back to life. Luffy and Bonnie, with their Dawn Gatling, for any other character, that's fatal damage. Like, they just blew a bunch of actual holes into Saturn, right? Any character that should kill them. Like, they dealt a fatal amount of damage, but Saturn still regenerated. So to me, it seems like characters like the Holy Knights and the Gorosei, their regeneration is on a different level. Killing them does not do anything to stop their regeneration. It will just keep going. They're essentially immortal. Conqueror's Haki is the only way to put a stop to it, and once you overcome their regeneration with Conqueror's Haki, they don't revert back to normal, they just die. That's what it seems like to me. That's how I'm piecing together all of the, pieces of evidence that we have, the conflicting scenarios. I think in Jupiter's case, it's because he's a sandworm and just has natural regenerative abilities. I mean, I guess that's possible. That'd be very confusing, but I think straight like then that doesn't explain Saturn, right? Saturn obviously has a fatal amount of damage dealt him with the Dawn Gatling. He's literally in pieces. You just die. That's fatal, right? You would just die from that. There's holes in his face, you know, in his head. Yeah, I think it's C contract versus Dami Reversi. Because the other thing about this is that it would just negate the entire importance of Conqueror's Haki, and it's made very clear that you need Conqueror's Haki to deal with these characters, you know? But Dorian Brogy did not use Conqueror's Haki. So I think Dami Reversi has a lower bar to being undone, and for that, the bar is just fatal damage. For C contract characters, the bar seems to be like fatal damage with Conqueror's Haki, you know? If I were to look really quick, let me look at this Herald situation too. Sorry, I mentioned at the start of the stream I do have some neck pain at the moment. Yeah. I mean, I think this makes sense. I think this rationalization makes sense. Meek, thanks for the 5. Hey, hope you enjoyed the chapter. Love that Frankie's new attack name scheme is Latinizing his previous attacks. What's your favorite part? I love the Frankie upgrade. I'm going to say it right now. I'm going to ask you guys right now. I think Harold, sorry, not Harold. I think Frankie takes Jinbe now. I think Frankie's number 4. I got Frankie at number 4. Because the punch alone, like, look, if Frankie and Jinbe had to box, I would still take Jinbe. But Frankie's punches just got way stronger, and punching is, like, really low in Frankie's arsenal. Like, that's his most basic thing. Like, I don't think Frankie is the punching guy. It's just, like, he's also pretty good at punching when it comes down to it, if you just need to straight win a fight in fisticuffs. Frankie's lasers, rockets, coup d'event, I think all that stuff just got a huge upgrade. I think Frankie passed Jinbe up. I'm not saying this chapter showed Frankie doing better stuff than Jinbe, but I think that Frankie is now, I got him above Jinbe. I think once we see his full arsenal, I think it'll be passing up Jinbe. Morge, do you think Jinbe is in his prime or still or past his prime? I think he's in his prime. I just don't think that he's going to improve anymore, you know? Current Frankie plus Haki versus Queen. Frankie doesn't need Haki is the thing. I don't think Frankie needs Haki. There's no, like, characters don't need Haki. Unless you're trying to get to the tippy top of the One Piece world, the Haki doesn't matter. You know? It's like... like, if Frankie's shooting, like, 50 lasers at you, you're getting fucked up. You know, unless you're, like... one of the stronger characters in the story. It's not going to be like Jinbe's not going to be like fucking riddled with laser holes and be like, but do you got Haki though? Coughing up blood and stuff. Like, you know, it's like there's different ways to skin a cat. Like the simple way to, like, Haki's good, but characters without Haki don't just beat, or sorry, characters with Haki don't just beat characters without Haki. At a certain point, just brute power matters. Like, that was established literally in the arc that we were first learning about Haki, which was Amazon Lily. Luffy didn't have any Haki. The Boa sisters, like, everybody on that island had Haki. Luffy was still stronger than all of them, except for Boa Hancock herself, right? You can just, like, the Boa sisters were like, your punches don't have Haki. It doesn't matter. Luffy's punches are stronger, you know? So same thing with Frankie. Like, he doesn't need Haki. You know, unless he's going up against literally, like, top-tier characters or whatever, his journey does not require him to have Haki. Sorry, my favorite part I think my favorite part was the Frankie upgrade. I think that might have been my favorite part. Factory Cow, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 23 months. Can't wait for Elbaf to bring some real development for Jinbe and cement his dynamic with Luffy as one of the most intimate of anyone on the crew. I don't know if that's happening, Factory Cow, but it's nice to have dreams. Red-haired Zerif, thanks for the 5. It was a combination of Luffy, Zoro, and Usopp taking down the Punk Hazard Dragon. Usopp will play a big role in taking down Dami vs. Loki. Hey, that's an interesting point. Sure, maybe that's possible. I do have... Watch out for tomorrow's video. I talk about how even Usopp can have a potentially cool role in the battle against Dami vs. Loki. Meek, thanks for the 5. Do you think it's possible that Usopp kills Loki, or at least plays a major part in the fight against Dami vs. Loki? If so, how? Meek, I'm sorry, you will have to wait to tomorrow's video, but I do have a section talking about that. I don't imagine Usopp getting the killing blow, but I think Usopp could really help set things up for that, if that makes sense. I think Usopp could have a big role. Talha Jahan, thanks for the 2. Zorosopp living his dreams of leading Elbaf warriors. Zorosopp living his dream of leading Elbaf warriors. Oh, shit. Yeah, Zoro is leading a bunch of warriors. It's just not fucking samurai. A lot of them are swordsmen, though. That is funny. Tom, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 41 months. Just got off work. Personally, I didn't really like the chapter. Frankie's handed a power-up. A fire is put out yet again. Usopp, my favorite, does nothing. Yeah. I don't know what's Oda's deal with thinking that, like, putting out fires is, like, really dramatic. But, I mean, I guess it's a task to be done. I get that it's important to save the books in the Owl Library. But, I mean, it's just checking off a box, right? It is what it is. I think that is a thing that I had, which is I would rather not have had Frankie be handed the power. Like, I think I and a lot of people hoped for in Egghead, because up till now, Frankie's done all of his improvements on his own, right? And he did all of his improvements in the time skip by being at Baltigo, which was Vegapunk's, homeland where he grew up or whatever, right? So Frankie got to study Vegapunk's stuff there and then upgrade himself accordingly. Now when you get to Egghead, it would have been really nice to see Frankie study Vegapunk's new and updated stuff, right? Because like before, Frankie just only got to study what a young Vegapunk worked on, right? Egghead is new age, like modern, advanced Vegapunk. It would have been great to see Frankie study from that technology, because now he gets to see the upgraded stuff and then apply that to himself. I personally did not enjoy the fact that Lilith just handed Frankie the power-up. But the thing is, like, it's funny because, like, the expectations dropped so much. So before it was kind of like, oh boy, we're at Egghead. This is the place that you would hope for Frankie to learn, study, improve something, right? And then absolutely nothing happened, right? So then expectations just, like, absolutely cratered, and it was like, oh my god. So then once your expectations drop so low, now getting anything at all, even if before you would have been like, no, that's not good, but now the standard has dropped so much. So now it's like, oh, Frankie just getting an upgrade related to Vegapunk's advancements in general, I'm happy. Like I wanted that before, right? Now it's like I don't even care how I get it. I'm happy that we got that for Frankie. So it's almost just like you go from like, man, I'm expecting like a 5-course meal. I'm really excited for this. And then you find out you're not getting dinner at all. So it's like, shit. Okay, I can't believe I was excited for what I thought was going to be some really good food, but then didn't get anything. And then you get the pleasant surprise. It's like, just kidding. I got you some McDonald's. And it's like, I'll take McDonald's, I'll take McDonald's. So you see what I'm saying? If you're expecting the 5-course meal and then they say, never mind, just kidding, you're getting McDonald's, then you're disappointed. But if the order's instead, hey, you're going to get the 5-course meal, just kidding, you're not getting anything, you're going to starve for dinner, but then you get told you're getting McDonald's, now you're happier. Does that make sense? It's just the flow of events. So it kind of tricked me into enjoying something that I otherwise wouldn't this chapter. Like if you went back to Egghead, and it was like Frankie's just handed some Super Cola and he doesn't have to learn or improve anything, I would have been like, man, that's lame. But We went through Egghead. Frankie didn't get jack shit. I was like, oh shit, we didn't get anything to eat. And then Oda's like, here's a fucking hamburger, $4 hamburger. I'm like, fuck yeah, $4 hamburger, you know? Anyway. 3 Battle, thanks to the 2. New to the channel, you like Sanji ranked to other... ranked other... Okay, so you said ranked other shat, but I assume you mean ranked other Straw Hats. I got for Sanji 3rd, which I think is, like, pretty standard. I don't think that's kind of... You know, I don't think that's crazy. I think everyone's got Sanji. I think pretty much everyone's got Sanji 3rd. Except for, like, maybe the most hardcore Sanji fans who will argue that he's 2nd or tied with Zoro for 2nd or something. And then there's hardcore Sanji haters who would argue that he's 4th behind Jinbe. But I got a feeling that Jinbe just got dropped to number 5. I'll just say that. Dre, thanks for the 2. If Dorian Broggie actually died, it would have been so fire. So this was a situation where I had read the spoilers. So I wish I could have... So I knew Dorian Broggie survived. I wish I could have felt the emotions I would have felt if Dorian Broggie had actually... Like, I'd seen that blind. Like, oh my god, Dorian Broggie just killed one another. It is just the way it is. I read the spoilers. So, I thought it was very... I think I would have been fooled. I think I would have been fooled if I read the chapter. And I would have, but I can't really judge that because I didn't know, you know? Tier Treviso, thanks to the 2. Imagine Frox's death was a fake out all along. I mean, it might have been. You never know what Oda pulls with this. Maybe Oda's got, like, a Rox clone hidden away somewhere or something like that. I wouldn't mind if Rox's death was a fake out, personally. Because, like, I did a whole video, like, Rox we didn't actually, like... I swear I'm very consistent with this. I don't actually have a problem with fake out deaths. I have a problem with fake death scenes. I've classified that as something different. Those are scenes where Oda writes something really emotional and heartbreaking and like a whole big tragic send-off. If Oda's milking emotion from the reader, that's when I've got a problem with like him revealing like, haha, I was just kidding. Because then that's, to me, that's having your cake and eating it too, right? You get the emotional payoff of killing off a character, but you get the feel-goodness of not actually having to do it, right? I don't like that. Rox did not get a very dramatic death scene. I did a whole video talking about it, which was like, Rox's death was like, compared to all of these past great characters like Hiruluk, Bellamy, or Corazon, Rox's death was kind of like he goes out with a whimper. Oda generally likes to have like very grand tear-jerker finales for these characters, but Rox is a character who like, it feels like a little bit uncomfortable. Like, we see him in a very undignified state, and he goes out, like, nobody to see him, like, no friends or allies or family or anything like that. He's kind of just, like, they just put him down like a dog off screen, right? That's very untraditional for One Piece deaths. I put out the video analyzing it, and I explained why it actually is fitting for what it seems like Oda was doing for his character, but it also means I would have zero problem with Rox being revealed to be alive, because Oda didn't actually try to milk a really dramatic tearjerker death scene out of him, you know? It almost feels like we would have loved to have gotten more of a conclusion to his story than kind of the ugly conclusion that we got. I'm totally okay with Rox being dead. Or sorry, Rox being alive. I'm okay with it either way, you know what I'm saying? If Oda wanted to kill him off in the sort of like grimy, unceremonious manner that he did, I think that's fine. I think that fits the story. If Oda wants to reveal that he didn't die, I'd be like, that's totally fine, because you didn't really try and sell us on a tearjerker there, you know? SJ20XX, thanks for the 5. Mu left God Valley and Mu left Elbaf at the end of 1175. Maybe that's why they gained control and killing themselves reversed it. See when Xebec regains control. But he doesn't leave Elbaf at the end of 1175. He's... What? It doesn't seem like he leaves Elbaf. I think he's still there. And Imu didn't leave God Valley. Like, he left on a boat. I guess I'm confused by your comment. Grizzly Adams, thanks for the 5. This was a basic Frankie attack compared to Jinbe's ultimate. Frankie greater than Jinbe. Yeah, that's the thing I'm saying, which is just like... Frankie's punches are normally really weak. Not weak. Like, they're strong compared to, like, he KO'd a Vice Admiral and stuff. I'm saying weak by the standards of, like, Yonko commander level characters, Like, Frankie's not going to be putting down high level characters with his punches. So the fact that Oda's kind of portraying Frankie's punch as being, like, even just the general thought that Oda might be portraying Frankie's punch as comparable to Jinbei's, even if it's not the same, I'm sure Jinbei still beats Frankie in boxing. That's huge, because punching is not really Frankie's, like, punching is not really Frankie's, like, main wheelhouse, Like, forget that, like, think about it like this. This is Frankie's absolute weakest attack. Standard punch, okay? From there, he's got all these other weapons that we now have yet to see, which is like lasers, rocket launchers, coup de vent, yada yada, right? And then on top of that, that's just base Frankie. We haven't even seen General Frankie. Like, how strong is Shogun Frankie going to be at this point? You're telling me that amped Shogun Frankie can't beat Jinbei right now? I got Frankie above. I think Shogun Frankie's taking Jinbei. I might be jumping the gun. I also think I generally underestimate Jinbei, but it is what it is. Rei Uchiha, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 40 months. Hey, Lord Morge, I'm still here. I just normally work during your stream times. But for the next one, I'm working 11 p.m. to 7 a.m. and can catch the stream live. Hey, that's awesome. Good to see you. Morge's Pinky Toe, thanks for the 2. If Loki gets Dami Reversi, does that mean the Hammer will too? No, I don't think so. And I think that that's one of the... I'll talk about it more tomorrow, but I do think that that's one of the big swing factors that will actually help the Straw Hats. Chizzer, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 4 months. Usopp stocks right now, heartbreak. In my opinion, it's a little dumb that the Elder/Emu have S/SS tier Conqueror's Haki. To me, it again makes Conqueror's Haki less cool when Luffy needed a full journey. But the Elders and Emu are like, really old characters. Like they're like, if anything, Luffy needed a full journey. Luffy's gotten his Conqueror's Haki down in like 2 years, Emu and the Elders are like centuries old, right? So it kind of makes sense. Emu is supposed to be a strong villain, like probably one of the strongest characters from the second world, right? And then my understanding of what the Elders are is basically over the last 800 years since the Void Century, it seems like there's been, many generations of Celestial Dragons. The strongest Celestial Dragons are God's Knights. And then every couple centuries or so, like a particularly strong God's Knight, like an exceptionally strong God's Knight, might be promoted even further to permanent status, becoming a Gorosei, right? So, like, what we're seeing among, like, the Gorosei are essentially, like, a collection of the strongest, probably, like, the supreme commanders of the God's Knights across the last 8 centuries, So, if anything, I think the Gorosei are kind of weak. If across, like, 8 centuries, this is the best you got, Like, none of the Gorosei, even Garling, who had hype early on, and I overhyped him, right? None of the Gorosei seem like they're Yonko level themselves, So I think that this is the best you kind of got. You can take all these Celestial Dragons and all the God's Knights that have been born over the last 800 years, and all together you got 5, decent Conqueror's Haki users at best. Gaban even said that none of the God's Knights he'd fought before had Conqueror's Haki, so I think it is pretty rare. Like, the Gorosei are the rarest of the rare God's Knights, Tatum just dunked and hit a 3. I'll say this season and this season only, I would support the Celtics in an NBA Finals if they're up against the Thunder. That's how much I hate the Thunder. Meek, thanks for the 2. No lie, I genuinely think Frankie greater than King now. I don't know about that, man. Frankie greater than King means that you got Frankie basically at Zoro and Sanji's level, right? I don't think he's Zoro and Sanji's level. I mean, Zoro and Sanji will likely get upgrades themselves, so maybe that's not blasphemous, you know? Because if everybody's getting an upgrade, it's like, who cares? Tom, thanks for the 2. Dorian Brogy regrew entire heads while Rocks didn't refresh. Didn't refresh what? What do you mean? Let me see. 1166. What do you mean he didn't refresh? You're saying Rocks was really tired at the end of it? That might just be because Rocks used a lot of Conqueror's Haki, like used a lot of Haki. Dory and Brogy don't have that problem. It's established that in the Luffy Katakuri fight is that like Haki is very draining. So if you use a lot of Haki, then you're gonna run out of energy, right? Rocks presumably used a lot of Haki, and Conqueror's Haki in particular, over the course of the Roger and Garp fight. So to me, it makes sense that they're all like drained and tired at the end of it, including Rocks, right? Dory and Brogy, they didn't do much. They clashed with each other once, and then they cut each other's heads off. There's no Haki involved. There's no extended fight involved. So I don't know. It makes sense to me. Tio Treviso, thanks to 2. Check parking submissions if my message can be seen. Let's see. Sakul, thanks for the 5. I'm opening it up on the side. Sakul, thanks for the 5. I think fight against Domi Loki ties back to Gaban asking Luffy and Zoro if they can take Loki when they first meet in the castle, albeit in a twisted way. I mean, there's been so much teasing and hype around like the possibility of everyone of like having to fight Loki, right? But that was earlier in the story when Loki was still kind of being portrayed as a threat. Then once he became their friend, it was kind of like, okay, so that's not going to happen. But it would make a lot of sense if Oda set that up at the beginning, then made Loki a friend, and then revealed at the end that, like, no, but you are going to have to fight him regardless, you know? So I think that does follow. Tiptio Treviso, I do see your comments, so we are good this month. No need to email or anything. Thanks, man. I really appreciate it. For those of you who don't know, the Pirate King tier podcast, that's what Tiptio Treviso is referring to. We have submissions open right now, so anybody who is a Pirate King tier member, either on YouTube or Patreon, you get to submit your question for the Pirate King podcast, which is monthly. Submissions are open right now, and you can ask me any question about One Piece, other anime, manga, movies, TV, real life, video games, whatever. And I answer it in great detail in a monthly podcast. I get to answer in a much greater detail than I would normally a stream question, just because, you know, it's a full podcast devoted to just answering questions. And they're all an hour and a half long, and you get access to all previous Pirate King podcasts. So if you're interested in that, then definitely go check that out. Pax Autolymanus said, Pax Autolymanus. Thank you, I appreciate it. Appreciate it. I don't know what that means. Oda assembled the Avengers for Domi Loki. Yeah, I think that it's going to be a combination of... I elaborated in far greater detail in the video that's coming out tomorrow, but I think we've got a pretty good picture of what the groupings are kind of going to be, what the team ups are going to be, if that makes sense. Or sorry, what the lineup against Loki is going to look like. Yeah. Also, let me shout this out. I forgot to mention. Hold on. I think today is the last day of our hoodie deal. So if you want to go to the site, I think literally today is the last day of our hoodie deal. So if you want to go to our site, then definitely go check it out to get the hoodies. And let me also show you guys this. We have also just launched. Here we go. So today I think is the last day of our hoodie deal. So if you want to get the hoodies, make sure to go get them now. And then now we have opened up a new batch of posters. So we've opened up a new batch of posters. So if you're liking Loki, we got a Loki poster for you. And you can buy any 2 posters and get 3 free. So we've got a shit ton of new posters we just dropped. We got several of the Straw Hats. We got Shanks, Roger, Dragon, Ace, Sabo, Law, a lot of fan favorites, Garp. And you can still get that deal, the buy 2, get 3 free. You can get them for all of the previous characters that we had before as well. So really, these are all the new posters we've got. And then this collection, the deal is back on. We've got our buy 2, get 3 deal going on again. And that applies to all posters. So you can buy 2 character posters if you want, 3 island posters, buy 1 island poster, 2 character posters, 2 ships posters. You can mix and match however you want. So those deals are back. Loki you can only get this month, so this design is only for this month. And then the last thing is just that, the last thing is the Admiral collection. Yeah, the deal ends for this March 7th, so make sure you get your Admiral hoodies today. This is the last day to get them, so you can buy 2, get 1 free at $80 off. After this, the deal is gone. Mr. Saturn, thanks to the 5. If you could ask future Morge one thing about One Piece, what would it be? I might ask something broad. I don't want to be spoiled too much, so I might ask something broad like, is the final war satisfying? Or does One Piece have a good ending? Or like rate the ending out of 10 or something. I think I would ask that. When is the Instagram giveaway winner getting announced? So for those of you who don't know, here, that's a great question as well. It will be announced on Instagram. I think we just extended it slightly. But, yeah, there's, the winner should be announced 1 more week to March 4th. Sorry, I don't, let me confirm. Let me send a message. Let me send a message. We should have decided that already. Sorry about that. Sorry, the winner should have been announced. My bad. Has Morge talked about the One Piece treasure in real life? Does he also think it's a stupid/risky marketing move? I have literally no thoughts about it. I don't know what the point is of it. Because people can go search for it, but like, does Oda want it to be found? Like, I just don't get it. Because, like, at best, you're sending some people to physically go search for it, right? And that's, like, kind of a fun idea for a little bit. And then, worst case, somebody actually finds it. And then, somebody finds it, then, like, you know, the ending of the story is spoiled because that person will likely announce it to everybody. Or they open it up and it was just a fake thing, which would, I think, kill a lot of goodwill. So I don't really care about that. Alejandro Ramirez, thanks a lot. Am I blind or does it seem like Brogy got his arm back, the one Emu shot? Also, I need an explanation for Harold being one-shotted by Loki and not turning back to normal, maybe because of the Abyss Mark. With Brogy getting his arm back, wouldn't he have regenerated it kind of over the course of Dami Reversi? I don't know. I think Oda might have just been like, just imagine it just got regenerated thanks to Dami Reversi. And with Harold, it seems like Loki, with Harold, it seems like characters who have the Abyss Mark, their regeneration is different than Dami Reversi. With Abyss Mark characters, the trade-off is different. You cannot die with the Abyss Mark unless you are hit with a fatal amount of Conqueror's Haki. We've already seen multiple instances of characters taking fatal damage, like God's Knights and Gorosei taking fatal damage, and not just getting converted back, right? So that's different than Dami Reversi. For the God's Knights and the Gorosei, it's plainly established for us that only Conqueror's Haki can do it, right? Not just normal damage, right? Dami Reversi, anything can do it. You can just chop off their heads or whatever. So that's, I think, the key point of difference right there. And that's also likely why Harold doesn't turn back to normal. You just die. Like when that's done, when you die as a Holy Knight or a Gorosei, you just die. That seems like it's it. What do you mean people rock? Why are people saying rocks didn't heal? What in? He just seemed tired, which would make sense, right? Yeah, like Roger and Garp's attacks. Yeah, you can see Roger and Garp's attacks destroy Rox's body, and so then the version of him that we see afterwards is healed, right? Rox is just tired. Like he used a lot of Haki in the fight. Dory and Brogy didn't fight really. They just cut off each other's heads, so they wouldn't be tired afterwards. They didn't use Haki either. What about the Davy Clan Rocks killed? That's a really good. Whoa, 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 whoa. Whoa, 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 whoa. Holy shit. That right there, to me, is a plot hole. Now you got a plot hole on your hands. What? Rock says blood on him? Where's the blood? Oh, you're right. There is blood on him. Maybe it's their blood. That's simple. You can just headcanon and be like, that's just their blood, you know? But the Davy Clan, the fuck? Does anybody have any sort of rationalization for this? What about the Davy Clan? Mork finally addressing the plot hole, LMAO. I just saw people commenting about rocks. I forgot about the Davy Clan. Otherworlds JT, thanks for the 5. Loki Dami reversing, then the hammer shrinks and lets Usopp wield it temporarily. He's the first human to do so. Elbaf legend. Boom. Watch tomorrow's video. Otherworlds JT. You will be happy. Yeah, the fuck is going on with the Davy Clan? What the hell is this? What the fuck? I don't like that. Everyone who got chased down transformed like that. What the hell is that? Is it someone's powers? I don't know. I don't have an explanation for this. What the fuck? What the fuck? Is the Davy Clan alive? I guess they all died when the island sank, but that's so weird. TomTom says he's tired to the point where Garland can walk over and poke him and he dies? Yeah, we've seen Luffy like that in that state a million times at the end of every battle. What? Why is that? You know how many times... You remember when Luffy ran out of Haki after using Gear 4th and the entire fucking nation of Dressrosa literally had to physically carry him for 10 minutes because he couldn't get up? This is not new. We've seen this many times. That's not a plot hole. I don't like picking at things that are not plot holes which have clear explanations. But the Davy Clan is a plot hole. Like, let's not focus on the Rock situation when it's pretty clear that, like, if you look at Rock's the move, if you look at the end of 1165, right, versus comparing to 1166, 1165, he literally has holes that are blown into his body. He does not have those holes in the next chapter. Like, it's very clear. Like, they literally turn him into Swiss cheese. He's fine the next chapter, right? Him being tired is not, after the battle, is not a plot hole. Because it's already established if you use a lot of Haki, that's what happens, right? Blood on his face, we can even assume that's Roger and Garp's blood, you know? Because he did fuck him up. He's been fighting all day, actually. It doesn't even have to be Roger and Garb's blood. He's been cutting up, as we know, Davy Clan members, Garling, etc. It's natural. It would be weird if he didn't have anything on his face. But the Davy Clan being alive, that right there is a plot hole. This is why are you pushing for the blood thing on his face? Why are his body literally is healed. Look at the end of 1165. He has giant holes in his body that are no longer there in 1166. How much more fixed do you want him to be? Healed, meaning he goes back to full HP on everything? Not Haki. Using a lot of Haki means you got to recharge the Haki, right? Haki is not a physical body thing. It's your spirit. Why don't we focus on the Davy Clan? Why don't we focus on the Davy Clan? Imu isn't even on the island when the Davy Clan are reversied. Yeah, it's curious how that happened. Why would Dami Reversi, Dorian Brogy not be forced to use all their Haki possible? Because this is the other inconsistency, because I'll acknowledge this. Dorian Brogy seemed to be more in control of their actions than Rox was, right? But as far as I can tell, do Dorian Brogy even... this might sound mean, but do they even know how to use Haki? Because they don't show any. I don't even know what you're referring to here. Where's the Haki? They don't use any Haki. Their weapons aren't even black. they're not used. I don't think they know how to use Haki. I think they're just strong. Being out of Haki doesn't mean you can't move, though. Yes, it does. That's what happens to Luffy all the fucking time once he's used up his Haki. That's why he had to be carried around. That's why he had to be carried around in Dressrosa. Have you forgotten the 10 minutes of Dressrosa? He said, I need 10 minutes for my Haki to recharge or whatever. Where are Dorian Brogy using their Haki? If you can point me to the panel, that'd be nice to see. Like, forget Black Lightning, right? No one's saying they're Conqueror's Haki users. Forget Sparks. They don't even have Sparks, right? They don't even have fucking black coating on their weapons. Where are they using Haki? If they're cutting off each other's head, why would they need and even just the basic premise, if they're cutting off each other's head, why would that require like a crazy amount of Haki? You think the people who cut off Roger's head had some crazy amount of Haki, the executioner? It's just, they're both going for a kill shot on each other and they're both accepting it, so it seems fine. Luffy could move after Gear 4th against Katakuri. In Dressrosa, he was just otherwise injured or physically tired. No, he said in Dressrosa, I need to recharge my Haki. And Luffy against Katakuri, he had gotten more used to using Gear 4th, we can kind of imagine. He's gotten less and less downtime after using Gear 4th as time has gone on. I don't know why you're nitpicking this when it's been established. Using a lot of Haki fucking exhausts you. You know, that's been established. Morge, look at SBS 89. I remember the thing you're referring to, which is that you would have to, like, Luffy would have had to have figured it out if the citizens didn't help him, right? He would have had to figure it out. But that just tells us that Luffy didn't use all of his Haki. Like, it's not an exact science. The thing that we know that is established is that you get tired from using Haki. Luffy has said that before. That's been established in the story before, right? You can run out of Haki. It can be draining, right? So with that in mind, all we have to do is assume that Rox used up his Haki. And we can assume that in instances where Luffy is able to kind of fight afterwards, but is clearly tired, he doesn't use up all of his Haki. It's not like, I don't know why people are singling in on this, because like everything else lines up. Rox's body is healed. He used up a lot of Haki. It's established in the story that if you use up enough Haki, you get really fucking tired. Yada, yada. Those are all points that are established in the story. Okay? The only thing that doesn't line up is the Davy Clan members. Why are people not fixating on that? Why are people fixating on the Rox thing? If anything, this explains the rocks thing, because I was always like, wait, how did rocks turn back to normal after Roger and Garp just like killed him? So this to me seems very consistent. Luffy said he can still run around even when he ran out of Haki in Dressrosa. Sure, then just assume that rocks used more Haki. Like, do you want Oda to come out and give you like a math equation for this? Just roll with what the premise we're told is, which is that using Haki is tiring. Just assume that rocks used a lot of Haki. This is not that complicated. Why not look at actual inconsistencies? Like the fact that the Davy Clan members didn't turn back to normal. That's what's weird. What more do you want for rocks? His whole body was like fucking like ripped to pieces in 1165, and he's basically back to normal right after. He used a shit ton of Haki. Just let him lie down. He's lying down. He's good. That's fine. There's nothing crazy weird about that, you know? It's like, well, he should be able to, I don't know, fucking crawl or something, because Luffy was able to crawl. Fine. It sucks Oda didn't have him like crawling or like stumbling around or something like that. Maybe Oda should have had him do that. But that's not that big of an inconsistency. What about the Davy Clan members? What about the Davy Clan? The Davy died when the island sank, but Rocks was cutting them down a lot, it sounded like. So was he doing it in a way that wasn't fatal or something? But it's implied that he was killing them. Anand Karthik, thanks to 200 chapter later, retcon, Rocks hated his family, lol. Yeah, that's funny. We might start the One Piece fans can't read allegation. I mean, to me, there's a difference between like a clear, glaring plot hole versus like the story has already given us a perfectly reasonable answer. If you want like an exact math formula for how much Haki used should equal X amount of tired, to me, that's just nitpicking. It's like, look, the things that we saw with Rocks are very consistent with what we saw with Dorian Brogy. What do you call Rocks? Rocks died, clearly killed, right? Took fatal wounds, just like Dorian Brogy did. Therefore, Rock's next chapter is back to normal, just like Dorian Brogy were back to normal. The one discrepancy is Dorian Brogy aren't collapsed on the ground and tired like Rocks is, but it's not exactly a one-to-one situation because Rocks also did way, way, way more fighting and exhausted himself a lot more, right? Even if you don't want to go, and it's established that using Haki tires you the fuck out. Right? So you can use that as like it doesn't need to be a perfect one-to-one recreation of what happened with Dorian Brogy because the circumstances are different, right? We also don't know if Dami Reversi, like being turned back from being Dami Reversi, fills up your stamina again, right? Oda could just say that's like a different thing. In which case it doesn't even matter about Haki. It's just like Rocks is fucking tired. He's been fighting all day. The clear discrepancy is just like, why were the Davy Clan members not turning back? Maybe Reversi Rocks finished them. That's possible, because Imu did tell him to run around killing Davy Clan members. So who knows? Dorian Brogy, they didn't do much, is the thing. Like, they just cut off each other's head, so they don't really have time to get tired from anything beforehand. I also have to call stream in, like, the next few minutes, by the way. Tala says, Morge, any idea for Nami's role this arc, or will she be a background shroud for the third arc in a row? I had high hopes towards the beginning, because Elbaf actually starts with Nami. Like, she's the first character that we start the story with in Elbaf, and then the other Strahds kind of come in from there. But now I just don't know. Now I don't know. The sad thing is this arc, to me, is that even Nami's, like, cool niche, which is, like, she's the lightning girl, Zeus kind of sucks compared to what Loki's doing, you know? So now, I don't know. It just doesn't seem as impressive. Because before it was like, cool, Nami's got like this crazy like Yonko level attack that she can pull out sometimes, but it doesn't really look like that now. Nami's role this arc is running around without underwear. That's funny. All right, guys, I think I am going to have to call it here. My neck has surprisingly been fine for this period of time, but I do got to jump off. Thanks everyone for tuning in, and just watch for tomorrow's video. A lot of the things that we talk about here are talked about in tomorrow's video. I think it's a good one. So yeah, with that, I will talk to you all later.